Snow whipped through Portland's bitter streets. Water crashed over 5-year-old Noah Miller's head like a death sentence, tearing a scream from his small lungs that vanished into the howling night. The temperature display on the porch read 10 degrees below zero, its red digits reflecting in Eleanor Frost's ice-blue eyes as she tipped the bucket. Noah collapsed to his knees on the frozen porch, clutching his worn teddy bear against his thin blue sweater, now soaked through. "Inside is for family," Eleanor said, her voice as sharp as the winter air. She stood tall and willowy in her camel coat, blonde hair perfectly twisted at her neck. Not a single emotion crossed her face as she watched the child tremble. "You are not." Behind her, Robert Kane's heavy frame filled the doorway, his broad shoulders and trim beard giving him the appearance of strength without honor. A thin scar curved above his brow. He chuckled as the door swung shut, the lock clicking with terrible finality. "Little nuisance," he muttered, still breathing. The digital thermometer continued its merciless descent, 24 hours until temperatures would plummet to 20 below. Noah curled into himself, his dark hair plastered to his forehead, lips already turning an alarming shade of purple. The teddy bear absorbed the water, growing heavier in his small arms. His sobs quieted, a dangerous sign as hypothermia began its advance. From the shadows at the edge of the property, amber eyes watched. A German shepherd moved through the darkness, his powerful frame dusted with snow. His left ear bore a notch, battle scars visible even in the dim porch light. The dog observed the scene with an intelligence that seemed beyond animal instinct, muscles tensing beneath his thick sable coat. Without hesitation, the shepherd bounded up the steps, positioning himself between Noah and the merciless night. The animal's warm breath created small clouds in the frigid air as he lowered his head, gently nudging the boy's arm. Noah's eyelids fluttered, his consciousness fading. The shepherd growled low, pressing closer, offering what warmth he could against the killing cold. Headlights swept across the yard, illuminating the tableau on the porch. Detective Michael Harrison stepped from his unmarked sedan, instincts honed by years of service immediately registering the wrongness of the scene. At 53, Michael carried himself with the disciplined posture of his military past. His salt and pepper hair was cut short, face weathered by years and experience. A scar ran from temple to jaw on his left side, a souvenir from his final deployment. The shepherd bristled at his approach, placing himself squarely between the stranger and the boy. Michael recognized the stance immediately. Protection posture, military-grade training. He angled his body sideways, hands visible, voice steady. "Easy there, not here to hurt him." The dog maintained position but ceased growling, assessing with amber eyes that missed nothing. Michael approached slowly, the fallen snow crunching beneath his boots. When he reached the porch and saw Noah's condition, something broke open inside his chest. The image of another child, years ago, superimposed itself momentarily over the scene. "Hey there, buddy," Michael said, kneeling beside the boy. The freezing boards of the porch soaked into his knees. Noah's eyes opened slightly, unfocused and dangerously distant. "I'm cold," the boy whispered, his voice almost lost to the wind. Michael removed his heavy jacket, wrapping it around the small frame. The shepherd watched every movement, alert but allowing the intervention. "What's your name?" "Noah." Michael noted the wet porch boards, the scuff mark of an expensive boot by the door, pieces falling into place, a picture emerging that made his jaw tighten. Through the window, movement caught his eye. A woman's silhouette watching briefly before disappearing behind expensive curtains. "My dad's gone," Noah murmured. "Last week. They said it was his time." His small fingers clutched the sodden bear tighter. "She's not my mom." Michael lifted the child, alarmed at how light Noah felt in his arms. Too thin for a boy his age, bones fragile beneath cold skin. The shepherd rose with them, pressing close to Michael's leg as if they shared a common purpose. Together they crossed the snowy yard to the waiting car. The heater blasted as Michael settled Noah into the back seat. The shepherd climbed in without invitation, curling protectively at the boy's feet. For the first time, Noah's eyes fully closed, exhaustion claiming him. Michael pulled a thermal blanket from his emergency kit, tucking it around the child. He turned the temperature higher, then noticed the teddy bear again, soaked through, old, with an oddly stiff ear. Something wasn't right. 23 years as a detective had taught him to trust these instincts. Michael gently pressed along the seam with his thumb, feeling something solid beneath the fabric. "Noah," he said quietly, "may I look at your bear?" The boy hesitated, then nodded weakly. Michael carefully eased open the frayed seam with his pocket knife, revealing a small silver key stamped with the Parkview Trust logo and a sequence number. A safe deposit box key, purposefully hidden. He slipped it into an evidence pouch, then returned the bear immediately. Noah clutched it against his chest, relief washing over his pale face. Michael stared at the key, then at the sleeping child. Snow fell steadily against the windshield, accumulating like the certainty in his gut that this was far more than simple neglect. Michael pulled away from the curb, eyes moving between the road ahead and the rearview mirror. In the back seat, Noah Miller slept, small body finally warming beneath the blanket. The yellow house with black shutters stood silent behind them, its porch light burning against the darkness, illuminating nothing but frozen memories. The Portland Medical Center emergency entrance blazed with harsh fluorescent light that turned all skin sallow and all hopes brittle. Michael carried Noah through automatic doors that sighed open to admit them, the shepherd following so closely he might have been attached by invisible thread. Dr. Patel met them immediately, her dark eyes widening at the sight of the child and dog. "Suspected hypothermia," Michael said, his voice carrying the quiet authority that bypassed bureaucracy. "Found him soaked through outside in this weather. Name's Noah Miller, 5 years old." "Treatment room 3, Dr. Patel directed, already taking Noah's pulse. "The dog stays outside." Michael hesitated, noticing how Noah's fingers instinctively tightened on the shepherd's fur even in sleep. "The dog stays with him," Michael countered. Something in his tone closed the subject. Dr. Patel's examination was thorough and swift. Noah awakened during it, eyes wide with fear, until he saw the shepherd still at his side and Michael standing guard by the door. The doctor's face remained professionally neutral, but Michael caught the subtle tightening around her mouth as she documented Noah's condition. Moderate hypothermia, core temperature dangerously low, significant weight deficit for his age. Her voice dropped. "Detective, there are older contusions on his back and arms, multiple stages of healing." Michael nodded once, the confirmation of his suspicions landing like a physical weight. Dr. Patel continued her examination, gently cleaning small cuts, warming saline already flowing into Noah's arm. "He needs 48 hours of observation minimum," she said. "His system has undergone significant stress. Without proper treatment, complications could be severe, even fatal." 48 hours, Michael repeated, mentally calculating timelines. The unspoken clock started ticking. While Noah rested under warming blankets, Michael stepped into the hallway to make calls. The shepherd remained, chin resting on the edge of the bed, eyes never leaving the boy's face. Michael's first call was to dispatch, reporting the situation. The second was to his partner, Detective Sarah Chen. Her voice, always composed, sharpened when he described the scene. "How bad?" "Bad enough," Michael replied. "The stepmother, Eleanor Frost. Need background on her and the father's death last week." "James Miller." "The biotech researcher?" Sarah asked. "That was all over the news." "Same one. Heart failure, supposedly." "On it. You at Portland Medical?" "Yes. Bringing in social services?" "Protocol says yes. Preference says hell no." Michael allowed himself a brief smile at his partner's candor. "Agreed. But we're on the clock." He ended the call and returned to Noah's bedside. The boy looked impossibly small beneath hospital blankets, dark hair stark against white pillowcases. The bruises on his arms were more visible now, yellowing at the edges, telling their own timeline of abuse. Michael removed Noah's wet clothing, carefully placing each item into evidence bags. The blue sweater, thin socks, and the teddy bear, which he handled with particular care, mindful of its secret. As he worked, Noah stirred, eyes fluttering open with sudden panic. "Bear," he whispered urgently. "My bear." "Right here," Michael assured him, showing the soggy toy. "Just drying him off a bit." Noah watched with intensity as Michael gently patted the bear with towels. The detective worked methodically, years of evidence handling evident in his careful movements. When he reached the ear where he'd found the key, He noticed additional stitching, different from the factory seams. Someone had opened and re-sewn this section multiple times. He glanced at Noah, who was watching him with eyes too knowing for a 5-year-old. "Your dad gave you this bear?" Michael asked casually. Noah nodded, his voice barely audible. "He said to keep it close, always." Michael continued drying the toy, mind working through possibilities. A key hidden in a child's comfort object spoke of deliberate planning, of anticipated danger. "Noah, did your dad say anything else about the bear?" The boy's eyes darted to the door, then back to Michael. "He said it was our secret. If anything happened to him, keep bears safe." Noah's fingers twisted in the hospital blanket. "Dad said people might want to take it." Michael nodded, keeping his expression neutral, despite the alarm bells ringing in his mind. "You did good protecting it." The shepherd's ears pricked forward, head tilting at a sound only he could hear. Seconds later, the treatment room door opened. Amanda Ross entered, clipboard in hand, professional smile not quite reaching her eyes. At 42, she carried herself with the practiced efficiency of someone who had seen too much and still tried to care. "Detective Harrison," she acknowledged. "Child Protective Services. I understand we have a situation." Michael straightened, instinctively positioning himself between Noah and the newcomer. The shepherd did the same, a low rumble beginning in his chest. Noah Miller, 5 years old, found suffering from hypothermia after being locked outside by his stepmother. Amanda glanced at the being with raised eyebrows, but made no comment. She approached Noah's bed, her voice softening. "Hello, Noah. I'm Amanda. My job is to make sure you are safe." Noah retreated further into his blankets, one hand reaching for the shepherd, who moved closer. Amanda made notes, her practiced eyes taking in the bruises, the thinness, the fear. "Father deceased last week, James Miller. Stepmother is Eleanor Frost Miller. Married 8 months ago," Michael supplied. Amanda looked up sharply. "The James Miller, neuroscience researcher?" Michael nodded. Something passed across Amanda's face, too quick to interpret. "His death was unexpected," she said carefully. "Cardiac event, if I recall the news correctly." "Very unexpected for a healthy 45-year-old with no cardiac history," Michael agreed, watching her reaction. Amanda's pen paused over her clipboard. "I'll need to interview the stepmother. Protocol dictates temporary emergency placement while we investigate." The shepherd growled, louder this time. Noah's eyes widened in panic. "No," he whispered. "Please don't make me go back. She'll do it again." Michael and Amanda exchanged glances. She bent closer to Noah, her voice gentle but professional. "Do what again, Noah?" Tears welled in the boy's eyes. "The cold water. The closet. She says I'm bad luck." Michael's jaw tightened. The shepherd pressed his muzzle against Noah's arm, a silent reassurance. "Noah," Michael said carefully, "did your dad ever say why your stepmom doesn't like you?" The boy's voice dropped to nearly inaudible. "Dad said she only wanted his money. He said she put something in his drink." A single tear escaped, tracking down his pale cheek. Then he went to sleep and didn't wake up. The room fell silent except for the steady beep of monitors. Amanda's professional veneer cracked slightly, her eyes meeting Michael's with unspoken understanding. This had just escalated beyond routine child endangerment. "I'll expedite the investigation," she said quietly, "but I still need to process temporary custody. The system isn't equipped for this," Michael interrupted. "If what he's saying has merit, Noah isn't just a victim of abuse. He's a witness, possibly to murder." Amanda's expression hardened. "Detective, I sympathize, but I can't circumvent protocol based on the statement of a traumatized child." "Then give me 48 hours, Michael countered. "Doctor's orders anyway. I'll take personal responsibility." "That's not how this works." "Then make it work," Michael insisted, his voice low but carrying the weight of absolute conviction. "Because I'm not letting this boy disappear into the system where she can reach him." Their standoff was interrupted by Michael's phone. "Captain Reynolds," the caller ID announced. Michael stepped into the hallway to answer, tension evident in every line of his body. "Harrison," the captain's voice came through clearly, authority wrapped in false concern. "Heard you picked up a domestic. Miller kid." Michael's instincts flared. News traveled too fast. "Yes, sir." Hypothermia, signs of previous abuse. Hand it off to Chen. I need you on the Westbrook case. With respect, sir, this is potentially more serious than that wasn't a suggestion, Detective. Reynolds' voice hardened. The Westbrook case has political implications. This is some family dispute. Social services can handle it. Michael stared at the treatment room door, imagining Noah inside, small and vulnerable. Sir, there are indications this could be connected to James Miller's death last week. A pause, too long to be casual. What kind of indications? The boy made statements. I found evidence suggesting Miller anticipated threats. Another pause. Evidence isn't statements from a 5-year-old, Harrison. You know better. Reynolds sighed audibly. Look, Eleanor Frost Miller just called the commissioner directly. Says you took her stepson without cause. She's threatening a lawsuit against the department. The pieces clicked into place with cold clarity. That was fast, Michael observed. Almost like she was expecting intervention. Don't start with conspiracy theories, Reynolds warned. Transfer the case and get back to actual police work. The call ended. Michael stood motionless, the weight of 23 years on the force pressing against the oath he'd taken to protect the innocent, against the memory of another child he'd failed to save. When he re-entered the treatment room, Sarah Chen had arrived. At 36, Sarah combined analytical brilliance with street-smart intuition. Her dark hair was pulled back severely, her tailored suit immaculate despite the late hour. She acknowledged Michael with a nod before turning her attention back to Noah, who was showing her his teddy bear with cautious trust. The shepherd had accepted Sarah's presence, a significant endorsement. Amanda Ross still stood by the window, her expression suggesting an internal struggle between protocol and instinct. Captain wants me off the case, Michael said without preamble. Sarah's eyebrows rose. That was remarkably quick. Eleanor Frost called the commissioner directly. Interesting connections for a grieving widow, Sarah observed. She held up her tablet, voice lowering. Did some preliminary digging. Eleanor Frost, 35, former pharmaceutical sales representative. Met James Miller at a biotech conference last year. Whirlwind romance, married within 3 months. Previous marriages? Working on it. But get this, Robert Kane, her friend who lives at the residence, former security consultant for Nexus Biotech, main competitor to Miller's company. The implications hung in the air. Michael felt the familiar tightening in his gut that signaled a case transcending ordinary crime. Noah needs protective custody, he said firmly, not foster placement, somewhere Eleanor can't reach him. Amanda spoke up. If there's genuine reason to suspect the child is in danger, we could place him in a secure facility, but I would need no facilities, Michael interrupted. No paper trail she can follow. 48 hours, Amanda, that's all I'm asking. What you're suggesting breaks at least 6 regulations and could save his life. Their eyes locked in silent battle. Finally, Amanda's shoulders dropped slightly. 48 hours, she conceded, but I need something concrete by then, or he goes into the system by the book. Michael nodded, relief momentarily loosening the tension in his shoulders. Noah watched the adults with the hypervigilance of a child accustomed to reading rooms for danger. What happens now? He asked in a small voice. Michael crouched to eye level with the boy. You're going to stay here tonight. Get warm and rest. The doctor needs to make sure you're okay. Will you leave? Fear crept into the question. No, Michael promised without hesitation. I'll be right here. The shepherd settled more firmly against Noah's bed, amber eyes fixed on Michael as if evaluating the truth of his words. What about him? Noah asked, hand resting on the dog's head. He stays too, Michael assured him, though he had no authority to make such promises. Some rules mattered less than others. Noah's eyes, too old for his years, studied Michael's face. She won't stop looking, he whispered. She's scary when she's mad. I know something about scary people, Michael said gently, and I know how to keep them away. Sarah cleared her throat softly. Michael, a word? They stepped just outside the door, leaving it open enough to maintain visual contact with Noah. Reynolds isn't going to let this go, Sarah warned, and if Eleanor has the commissioner's ear... I know the risks, Michael cut in, but I've seen this before, Sarah. The calculated cruelty, the political connections, the convenient death. If we don't move now, that boy joins his father. Sarah studied her partner's face, recognizing the rare intensity that signaled Michael Harrison had crossed from professional detachment into personal mission. James Miller was working on something big before he died, she said. Breakthrough Alzheimer's treatment, potentially worth billions. The patents and research are in dispute now. Let me guess, Eleanor is claiming spousal rights? Along with Nexus Biotech, who suddenly have remarkably similar research. Michael glanced back at Noah, who was whispering something to the shepherd. That key we found opens a safe deposit box at Parkview Trust. Miller hid it in his son's teddy bear for a reason. You think there's evidence inside? I think Miller knew he was in danger and tried to leave a failsafe. Michael's voice hardened with conviction. I'm not letting another child down. Sarah. Moshayan, Sarah knew the story, one of the few who did. Michael's son Jacob and wife Rebecca, killed in a car accident while Michael was deployed overseas. The guilt he'd carried for years, the ghost that drove him to work harder, pushed further on cases involving children. I'm with you, she said simply. But we do this right. No shortcuts that could compromise whatever we find. Michael nodded, gratitude briefly softening the hard lines of his face. When they returned to the room, Noah had fallen asleep, one hand curled in the shepherd's fur. The dog watched them enter but didn't move, unwilling to disturb the child's rest. The dog, Sarah whispered. Any ID? Tags? Michael shook his head. Nothing, but he's trained, military or police grade. The way he positions himself, the alertness. Someone invested serious time in him. Coincidence he found Noah? I don't believe in those anymore. Amanda approached, her voice low. I've bought you time. Told my supervisor the child is in critical condition. No visitors or interviews for 48 hours, but detective, her eyes held genuine concern. Be careful. If Eleanor Frost has the influence you suspect, crossing her could end more than your career. Michael's gaze returned to Noah, vulnerability personified in hospital whites. Some things are worth the risk. While Noah slept under hospital lights, Michael worked from a chair beside the bed. The shepherd dozed but remained alert, ears twitching at every sound from the hallway. Sarah had returned to the precinct, gathering information away from Reynolds' direct supervision. At 3 a.m, she texted, Eleanor Frost, 2 previous marriages, both husbands deceased. First, cardiac event. Second, apparent suicide. Substantial insurance payouts both times. Michael stared at the message, pieces connecting, a pattern emerging from the darkness. By dawn, Noah stirred, momentarily panicked until he registered Michael still present, the shepherd still guarding. The boy relaxed visibly, trust beginning to form like delicate ice. Dr. Patel arrived for morning rounds, reviewing Noah's improved vitals with professional satisfaction. Much better, she confirmed. But he stays the full 48 hours. No exceptions. Michael nodded gratefully. The timeline aligned with Amanda's agreement. 2 days to find enough evidence to secure Noah's safety permanently. When Dr. Patel left, Michael pulled his chair closer to Noah's bed. The shepherd watched him with intelligent assessment, apparently satisfied with whatever he detected. Noah, Michael began gently, I need to ask you about your dad, about what happened before he got sick. The boy clutched his bear tighter but nodded. Did your dad and Eleanor argue? Noah's voice came small but clear. All the time. About money, about me. His eyes dropped. About his secret work. His research? He had a special medicine. Eleanor wanted it. Dad said it wasn't ready, that people would get hurt. Noah's finger traced patterns on the blanket. Then Robert started coming over. They thought I was sleeping, but I heard them. They said Dad was stubborn, that he needed to learn a lesson. Michael kept his expression neutral despite the alarm flaring inside. When did your dad get sick? After the big fight. Eleanor put something in his water. I saw her. I told Dad and he got really mad. He took me to his office that night. That's when he put the key in Bear. Noah's eyes filled with tears. He said if anything happened to him, I should find someone good to help me. The simple faith in those words struck Michael like a physical blow. A dying man's trust placed in his 5-year-old son, hoping the child would somehow find salvation among strangers. Your dad was very brave, Michael said, and so are you. Noah looked up, vulnerability and hope warring in his expression. Are you someone good? The question penetrated every defense Michael had built since he'd lost his own family. For a moment, he was transported back. Another child asking for protection, protection he had failed to provide from thousands of miles away. I'm trying to be, he answered honestly. The shepherd suddenly lifted his head, a low growl building in his chest. Seconds later, the treatment room door opened without warning. Captain Reynolds entered, his imposing frame filling the doorway, uniform pressed to perfection, authority preceding him like a physical force. At 58, Reynolds commanded respect through intimidation rather than admiration. His close-cropped gray hair and permanent frown had terrorized new recruits for decades. Harrison, he acknowledged coldly. His eyes swept the room, lingering on Noah and the growling shepherd. Interesting company you're keeping. Michael rose slowly. Sir, didn't expect a personal visit. Apparently my phone calls aren't persuasive enough. Reynolds stepped further into the room. The shepherd's growl intensified. Called to inform you that Eleanor Frost Miller has been granted temporary custody by Judge Harmon. She'll be collecting the boy within the hour. Noah made a small, wounded sound. The shepherd moved closer to him, placing himself between the child and the newcomers. That's impossible, Michael stated flatly. Doctor's orders, 48-hour observation. Suspected abuse cases require investigation before custody decisions. Reynolds smiled thinly. Judge Harmon disagreed, found the evidence of abuse circumstantial at best. The boy was outside briefly during normal play. Accidents happen. Normal play? Michael's voice remained controlled despite his rising anger. 10 below zero, soaked through, previous bruising consistent with ongoing abuse. Hearsay and speculation, Reynolds dismissed. The commissioner is personally concerned about how this has been handled. The subtext was clear. Back off or face consequences. Michael felt Noah's frightened eyes on him, the weight of that gaze heavier than any burden he'd carried. Sir, with respect, there's evidence suggesting James Miller's death may not have been natural. Noah may have witnessed. Enough, Reynolds cut him off sharply. The case is closed, Detective. Miss Frost Miller will be here at noon. Have the child ready. He glanced contemptuously at the shepherd. And get that animal out of here. After Reynolds departed, Noah broke into silent tears, shoulders shaking with the effort to remain quiet even in his distress. The shepherd whined softly, pressing his muzzle against the boy's arm. He's sending me back, Noah whispered. She'll hurt me again. Michael sat on the edge of the bed, ignoring hospital protocol. Noah, look at me. He waited until the tearful eyes met his. I made you a promise. Do you remember? Noah nodded uncertainly. I promised to keep you safe. I don't break my promises. But the policeman said, some police make mistakes, Michael said carefully. Even ones in charge. Sarah arrived moments later, breathless from rushing. Her normally composed features showed rare alarm. Reynolds pulled strings, she said without preamble. Judge Harmon is Eleanor's cousin by marriage. The custody order bypassed standard procedures. Michael nodded grimly. Noon deadline. Sarah glanced at Noah, lowering her voice. Michael, if you interfere with a legal custody order, it's not legal. It's manipulated. He met her concerned gaze. I lost my son because I wasn't there when he needed me. I'm not failing another child. The weight of that statement hung between them. Sarah knew better than to argue when Michael invoked Jacob's memory. What do you need, she asked simply. Access to Parkview Trust, today. We need whatever's in that safe deposit box. Sarah nodded. I'll make the arrangements. While they talked, Noah had been whispering to the shepherd, small fingers buried in thick fur. The dog listened with uncanny attention, amber eyes focused on the child's face. He understands me, Noah said suddenly. Both detectives turned to him. Dad said he's special, not like other dogs. Michael approached cautiously. Does he have a name, Noah? The boy's face scrunched in concentration. Dad called him something. I can't remember. He looked directly at the shepherd. Guardian? The dog's ears pricked forward, tail sweeping once across the floor in confirmation. Guardian, Michael repeated, the name settling with unexpected rightness. Appropriate. Noah's small hand rested on Guardian's head. He'll help us. Dad said he's the best at finding things. Michael and Sarah exchanged glances, both registering the possible significance. A specially trained dog, a researcher who anticipated threats, a key hidden for safekeeping. Noah, Michael asked carefully, did your dad train Guardian for his work? The boy nodded. Dad said Guardian can find things normal dogs can't, special smells from his medicine. Another piece clicked into place. James Miller's research involved neural pathways, potentially including scent detection applications. Guardian might be more than protection. He might be a living key to Miller's research. Michael made his decision. He would not abandon this child to Eleanor's calculated cruelty, would not let James Miller's final act of protection be in vain, no matter the personal cost. Sarah, get everything you can on Eleanor's previous husbands. Full autopsy reports if possible. He turned back to Noah, his voice gentle but firm. We're going to visit a bank to find what your dad left for you. Noah clutched his teddy bear tighter. Eleanor says I'm bad luck, that everyone who loves me dies. Michael felt something crack in his carefully maintained professional distance. He thought of Jacob, of the promises unfulfilled, of second chances that rarely came. That's not true, he said with absolute conviction. Your dad loved you enough to protect you even after he was gone. That's not bad luck. That's the greatest love there is. Guardian pressed closer to Noah, as if affirming the truth of these words. Outside, snow continued falling on Portland's streets, covering old tracks, creating new possibilities with each pristine layer. The clock ticked toward noon, toward confrontation, toward truth buried in a dead man's foresight. Michael Harrison's path, long directed by past failure, now aligned with present purpose. A child needed protection. A father's final wish demanded fulfillment. And perhaps, in saving Noah, Michael might begin to forgive himself for the son he couldn't save. I won't let you down, he promised. Words meant for Noah, but echoing across years to another child, another time. We do this together. Morning light struggled through Portland's heavy clouds, casting the world in shades of gray. The Parkview Trust building stood imposing against the winter sky, 12 stories of granite and glass that spoke of old money and older secrets. Michael Harrison parked his unmarked sedan 2 blocks away, habit and caution dictating distance. In the back seat, Noah Miller sat quietly, Guardian pressed against his side like a living shield. Sarah Chen scanned the street, her trained eyes noting each camera, each sightline. She wore civilian clothes, her badge concealed, hair loose around her shoulders to change her silhouette. Michael had done the same, trading his usual attire for a charcoal sweater and jeans. They had less than 3 hours before Eleanor's noon deadline. Remember what we discussed, Michael said gently to Noah. Stay close. Answer only if spoken to directly. The boy nodded solemnly, clutching his teddy bear. The key remained hidden in Michael's pocket, their purpose concealed beneath ordinary appearances. Guardian's training showed in his alert stillness, awaiting commands rather than displaying anxiety. If anything feels wrong, Sarah added, squeeze Michael's hand twice. Don't hesitate. Together they approached the bank, just another family on a weekday morning. The marble lobby gleamed under crystal chandeliers, security cameras mounted discreetly in corners. A uniformed guard nodded as they entered, his eyes lingering momentarily on Guardian before moving on. At the main desk, a receptionist with perfectly coiffed silver hair looked up with a practiced smile that faltered when she noticed a Guardian. I'm afraid pets aren't permitted, sir. Michael presented his badge briefly. Service animal, medical necessity. The receptionist hesitated, then nodded toward a side desk. Marcus Blackwell handles safe deposit access. Second desk on the right. Marcus Blackwell proved to be a thin man in his 50s with thinning hair combed carefully over a balding crown. His suit was expensive but worn at the elbows, his demeanor precise to the point of affectation. He looked up as they approached, eyes narrowing slightly when they fell on Noah. Safe deposit access, Michael stated, not quite a question. Box 217. Blackwell steepled his fingers. Name on the account? James Miller. Something flickered behind Blackwell's professional mask. His hand moved beneath the desk, pressing a button Michael wasn't meant to notice. Security alert. May I see identification and the key, please? Michael produced his badge again, along with the silver key. Blackwell examined both, his movements deliberate, stalling. Through the glass walls of his office, Michael noticed a security guard speaking quietly into his radio. "I knew Dr. Miller," Blackwell said suddenly. "Brilliant man. Such a tragedy." His eyes shifted to Noah. "And this must be his son." Noah pressed closer to Michael's side, guardian tensing beside him. Sarah positioned herself where she could watch both the lobby and the office entrance. "The box, please," Michael prompted, keeping his voice pleasant despite the growing certainty they were being monitored. "Of course," Blackwell replied, "though there is a small issue of authorization. Typically, we require—" "My badge is authorization," Michael interrupted, "and time is something we don't have to spare." Something in his tone conveyed the futility of further delay. Blackwell's shoulders dropped slightly. "Follow me to the vault level, please." They descended in a private elevator, the silence broken only by the soft hum of machinery. Noah's small hand found Michael's, a silent connection seeking reassurance. Guardian remained perfectly positioned between the boy and Blackwell, a living barrier against potential threats. The vault level was cooler, the air conditioned to preserve documents and valuables. Steel safety deposit boxes lined the walls in numbered rows, each requiring dual keys for access. Blackwell led them to a viewing room, a small chamber with a single table and no windows. "Wait here. I'll retrieve the master key." When they were alone, Sarah moved to the door, watching through the narrow glass panel. Two guards positioned outside the elevator. Another just arrived. Michael nodded. "They've called someone, probably an Eleanor." Noah looked up, fear etching lines no child should wear. "Are we trapped?" "No," Michael assured him, crouching to eye level. "We're exactly where we need to be." Blackwell returned with the master key, his manner changed, more efficient now that decisions had been made above his pay grade. "Box 217, he announced, inserting his key into one lock. He gestured for Michael to use the client key in the second slot. Michael hesitated, then handed the key to Noah instead. "Your father left this for you. You should be the one to open it." The boy took the key with solemn purpose, standing on tiptoes to reach the lock. His small fingers turned the mechanism with surprising steadiness. The dual locks disengaged with an audible click. Blackwell extracted a long metal box, placing it on the table before them. "I'll give you privacy," he said, though his reluctance was evident. "Please use the call button when finished." The door closed behind him with the whisper of expensive hydraulics. Sarah immediately positioned herself to block any observation through the door's window, giving Michael and Noah genuine privacy. "Ready?" Michael asked gently. Noah nodded, his eyes never leaving the metal container that represented his father's final communication. Michael opened the box carefully, revealing its contents layer by layer. On top lay a sealed envelope, addressed simply, Noah. Beneath it, a collection of USB drives, each labeled with dates and encryption codes. A leather-bound notebook filled with James Miller's meticulous handwriting. Financial statements showing transactions between Nexus Biotech and offshore accounts linked to Robert Kane. Photographs of Eleanor meeting with Nexus executives months before she officially met James. And at the bottom, a small device Michael didn't recognize. Cylindrical, with a biometric scanner and what appeared to be an olfactory sensor. Noah reached for the letter with trembling fingers. The envelope opened to reveal pages covered in the careful script of a father who knew he might not live to speak these words. "My dearest Noah," Michael read aloud, the boy following along beside him. "If you're reading this, my fears have come true. I'm so sorry I couldn't protect you better. Know that everything I did was to keep you safe." Noah pressed closer as Michael continued. "I discovered something dangerous. A compound that affects neural pathways, potentially revolutionary for treating Alzheimer's, but deadly if misused. Eleanor married me to access this research. She and Robert work for people who would weaponize my discovery rather than use it to heal." Sarah looked over sharply from her position by the door. "Medical espionage. That explains the corporate connections." Michael nodded grimly, continuing to read. "Trust no one in authority. They've compromised people at every level. The evidence in this box proves what they have done, but they'll stop at nothing to recover it." The letter detailed accounts, passwords, evidence locations. James had been thorough, meticulous even in his final act of protection. Guardian was my research partner, specially trained to detect neural compounds. His sense of smell was enhanced through ethical treatments. He will recognize the chemical signatures others cannot. Keep him close. He will protect you as I no longer can. Noah looked at Guardian with new understanding, one hand burying itself in the dog's thick fur. I love you more than life itself. Be brave, my son. Find good people to help you. They still exist in this world. The letter ended with coordinates and instructions for a secondary evidence cache. Michael carefully photographed each document with his encrypted phone while Sarah kept watch. Someone's coming, she warned. Multiple footsteps. Michael quickly gathered the most critical items. The USB drives went into hidden pockets. The notebook and key financial documents into Sarah's concealed pouch. The strange device he wrapped and handed to Noah. In your teddy bear, he whispered. Like before. The boy nodded, quickly hiding the device in the bear's repaired opening. Guardian stood at attention, sensing the change in energy, muscles coiled beneath his fur. When Blackwell returned, 3 security guards accompanied him. Their hands hovered near concealed weapons. Detective Harrison, Blackwell said, false regret coding his words. There seems to be some confusion regarding authorization. Ms. Frost Miller has contacted us directly. As James Miller's widow, she has primary access rights to this account. Interesting timing, Michael replied calmly, positioning himself between Noah and the newcomers. We're finished here anyway. Blackwell's eyes darted to the box, noting key documents missing. I'm afraid I'll need to verify the contents before you leave. No, you won't, Sarah stated firmly. This is now evidence in an ongoing investigation. Guardian growled low, the sound vibrating through the small room. The guards tensed, uncertain how to proceed against a police detective and an apparently trained attack dog. Michael smiled thinly. We'll be leaving now, unless you'd like to explain to a judge why you interfered with a police investigation. The implied threat created just enough hesitation. Michael guided Noah toward the door, Guardian moving in perfect sync with them. Sarah followed, maintaining professional distance but ready to act if necessary. They reached the elevator without incident, the doors closing on Blackwell's frustrated expression. The ascent felt eternal, Noah's breathing quickening with stress. You did great, Michael assured him. Your dad would be proud. When the doors opened to the lobby, Michael immediately sensed the shift in atmosphere. 2 men in dark suits stood near the entrance, their stances and situational awareness marking them as professionals. Not bank security, private contractors. Back exit, Sarah murmured, through the mortgage department. They changed direction smoothly, maintaining casual pace. Guardian stayed perfectly positioned beside Noah, his training evident in every calculated movement. They had nearly reached the side corridor when a woman's voice cut through the marble acoustics. Noah, darling! Eleanor Frost stood by the main entrance, immaculately dressed in a cream-colored coat, her blonde hair swept into a perfect chignon. Her smile was dazzling, her eyes cold as winter ice. Robert Kane towered beside her, his broad frame blocking the doorway, the scar above his brow more prominent in the bank's harsh lighting. Noah froze, terror momentarily overwhelming him. Guardian pressed against his leg, a solid reminder of protection. Michael felt the boy's hand squeeze his twice. Keep walking, he instructed quietly. Don't look back. They continued toward the side exit, pace quickening slightly. Eleanor's voice hardened, theatrical concern replaced with command. Noah Miller, you come here this instant. Bank customers turned to watch the drama unfolding. Security guards shifted uncomfortably, caught between conflicting authorities. Michael, Sarah, Noah, and Guardian reached the side door, pushing through into the winter air. Their car waited 2 blocks away, suddenly too distant. Run, Sarah said simply. They moved quickly through the morning crowd, Michael half lifting Noah when his shorter legs couldn't match their pace. Guardian ran beside them, a tan shadow flowing over snow. Behind them, the bank doors burst open again. The 2 men in suits emerged, followed by Robert Kane's imposing figure. Split up, Michael instructed. Sarah, take the evidence. I've got Noah. Sarah nodded, immediately diverting down a side street, drawing one pursuer with her. Michael continued with Noah and Guardian, reaching the parking garage where they'd left the second vehicle. The emergency key was where they'd hidden it, behind the front wheel well. Michael unlocked the nondescript blue sedan, helping Noah into the back seat. Guardian leapt in beside him. "Stay down," Michael ordered, starting the engine. They pulled out of the garage just as Robert Kane and the remaining suit reached the entrance. Michael drove carefully, resisting the urge to speed. Attention was their enemy now. 2 blocks later, a black SUV pulled in behind them, tinted windows concealing its occupants. Michael checked the rearview mirror, recognizing the deliberate way the vehicle maintained distance while staying connected. "We've got company," he said calmly. "Noah, make sure your seatbelt is fastened." The boy complied with trembling fingers. Guardian positioned himself on the floor, body braced for sudden movements, eyes fixed on Michael as if awaiting commands. Michael took a random turn, then another, confirming their tale. The SUV followed, dropping all pretense of coincidence. A second dark vehicle joined from a side street, attempting to bracket them. Michael's military training activated, mind calculating escape routes, assessing variables. He'd driven under pursuit in Baghdad and Kandahar. Portland's snowy streets presented different challenges but familiar principles. "When I say down, you get on the floor with Guardian," Michael instructed. "Not before, not after. Exactly when I say." Noah nodded, fear in his eyes but trust stronger. Michael turned sharply onto Burnside, accelerating into faster traffic. The SUVs followed, closing distance. The lead vehicle pulled alongside, window lowering to reveal the driver. A man with a military haircut and empty eyes. Not Robert Kane. Someone with specialized skills. Michael swerved suddenly, cutting through a gas station lot and emerging on a parallel street. The maneuver bought seconds, not minutes. The SUVs reappeared, one attempting to pull ahead to cut them off. "Down," Michael commanded. Noah instantly slid to the floor, Guardian covering him with his body. Michael yanked the wheel hard, sending the sedan into a controlled skid that threaded between parked cars and into a narrow alley. The SUV couldn't follow through the tight space, forced to find another route. Michael navigated the warren of downtown side streets, using his knowledge of Portland to create distance. When they emerged near the river, he checked the mirrors again. Clear for the moment, but not for long. His phone vibrated with a text from Sarah. "Clear, heading to Rendezvous B." Relief flickered briefly. Sarah had escaped with the critical evidence. Now he needed to get Noah to safety before Eleanor mobilized more resources. They crossed the Fremont Bridge, leaving downtown behind. Michael drove north, then east, using a circular route to disguise their destination. Noah remained quiet, processing trauma with the stoicism of a child who had experienced too much too soon. "You did perfectly back there," Michael told him, meeting his eyes in the rearview mirror. "Your father would be proud." A small smile touched the boy's lips. Guardian helped. He wasn't scared at all. "Guardian knows his job," Michael agreed, "just like you knew yours." They reached the industrial district, warehouses and manufacturing plants creating a maze of similar buildings. Michael turned into a particular lot, approaching what appeared to be an abandoned machinery repair shop. The faded sign read "Peterson's Equipment Repair," the windows dusty with disuse. Michael pressed a remote, and a side door raised just enough to admit the sedan. Once inside, the door lowered automatically, sealing them in darkness until motion sensor lights activated, revealing a surprisingly well-maintained interior. "Where are we?" Noah asked, looking around with cautious curiosity. "Somewhere safe," Michael answered, helping him from the car. "A place few people know about." The warehouse had been converted into a sparse but functional safe house. A small living area occupied one corner, with basic furniture and amenities. Surveillance monitors displayed the perimeter. A weapons locker stood secure against one wall. Guardian explored the space methodically, inspecting each corner before returning to Noah's side, apparently satisfied with the security assessment. "Sarah will meet us here," Michael explained, checking the monitors. "We have supplies, security, and time to examine what your father left for us." Noah clutched his teddy bear, exhaustion finally catching up to him. "Eleanor will keep looking for us, won't she?" "Yes," Michael answered honestly, "but she doesn't know about this place. Few people do." Noah nodded, accepting this with the trust of a child who had no choice but to believe in the protection offered. Michael guided him to a small sofa, finding a blanket to wrap around his shoulders. "Rest if you can," he suggested gently. Guardian will stay with you. The shepherd needed no instruction, settling beside Noah with vigilant attention. The boy leaned against the dog's warm side, eyelids growing heavy despite his determination to remain alert. While Noah dozed, Michael established security protocols, checking systems and preparing for Sarah's arrival. His military background had taught him to use downtime efficiently, to prepare for the next engagement rather than dwell on the previous one. 90 minutes later, Sarah arrived through the rear entrance. She moved with the careful precision of someone ensuring they weren't followed, performing an extra sweep before fully entering the space. Clear, she confirmed. Took 3 alternate routes and 2 vehicle changes. Evidence secure. Michael nodded. Any problems with your tail? Lost him in the Pearl District, amateur, muscle without training. She glanced at Noah, lowering her voice. Reynolds is looking for you. APB issued, claiming you've kidnapped the Miller boy. Eleanor's playing the devastated stepmother for every news camera she can find. The information wasn't surprising, but confirmed the escalation. Michael had crossed a line that couldn't be uncrossed, committing to a path that would either vindicate or destroy him. We need to analyze what we've got, he said, and quickly. Sarah produced the documents and drives they'd recovered from the safe deposit box. Michael set up a secure laptop, one not connected to police networks. There's someone else, Sarah said as they worked. Someone contacted me after I left the bank. Said she worked with James Miller. Wants to meet. Michael looked up sharply. Could be a trap. I thought so too, until she mentioned Protocol Canary. It's in James's notes here. Sarah indicated a passage in the leather notebook. His fail-safe system for identifying trusted colleagues. What's her name? Dr. Melissa Zhang, neuroscience specialist who collaborated on his Alzheimer's research. Michael considered this, weighing risks against potential information. Set it up, neutral location, full security protocols. They continued analyzing James's files, piecing together the conspiracy that had claimed his life. The pharmaceutical breakthrough was even more significant than they'd initially understood. Not just a treatment, but potentially a cure for Alzheimer's, worth billions in the legitimate market. Worth even more if weaponized as a targeted neurological agent. Noah stirred, Guardian immediately alert beside him. The boy rubbed his eyes, momentarily disoriented before recognition returned. How long was I asleep? About 2 hours, Michael answered. How do you feel? Better, Noah said, though the shadows under his eyes suggested otherwise. He approached the table where Michael and Sarah worked, looking at his father's handwriting with quiet longing. Dad worked really hard on his medicine, he said softly. He wanted to help people remember things. Sarah smiled gently. Your father was trying to do something very important. That's why we need to protect his work. Noah nodded, understanding beyond his years. He pulled the device from his teddy bear, setting it carefully on the table. This was really special to him. He called it the Canary. Michael examined the cylindrical object more carefully. The biometric scanner appeared designed for a specific user, the olfactory sensor unlike standard equipment. Your father mentioned Guardian was trained to detect neural compounds, Michael said thoughtfully. I wonder. He held the device near Guardian, who immediately focused on it, nose twitching with interest. Noah watched intently, then whispered something in the shepherd's ear. Guardian approached the device, sniffing carefully before pressing his nose precisely against the scanner. The device activated, lights blinking in sequence along its side. A small compartment opened, revealing a micro SD card and a handwritten note. Final formulation, complete research data. Noah's thumbprint required for full access. Sarah stared in amazement. The dog is the key. That's brilliant. Michael turned to Noah. May I see your thumb, please? The boy extended his hand trustingly. Michael guided his thumb to the biometric scanner. The device completed its activation sequence, a tiny screen illuminating with a message. Identity confirmed. Welcome, Noah Miller. Your father made sure only you could access this, Michael explained. He trusted you to keep it safe until the right time. Noah's expression shifted between pride and sorrow, a child carrying a burden no child should bear. Michael inserted the SD card into the secure laptop, revealing thousands of research files, chemical compounds, test results, and a video file marked Evidence. The video showed James Miller in his laboratory, speaking directly to the camera. His resemblance to Noah was striking, the same serious eyes, the same determined set to his jaw. "This recording serves as my sworn testimony," James began. "I have reason to believe my life is in danger. Eleanor Frost, whom I married, and her associate Robert Kane have attempted to steal my research for Nexus Biotech. I've discovered they've been slowly poisoning me with a compound designed to mimic heart failure." The video continued, James methodically presenting evidence, including blood test results and surveillance footage of Eleanor tampering with his food and medication. Most concerning is their connection to Captain Thomas Reynolds of the Portland Police. Financial records show payments from Nexus to offshore accounts linked to Reynolds. He has suppressed previous investigations into suspicious deaths connected to Nexus and Eleanor. Michael and Sarah exchanged grim looks. The corruption reached exactly where they'd feared. "Should anything happen to me, all this evidence must reach the FBI directly, bypassing local authorities. My son Noah witnessed Eleanor's actions. She will attempt to silence him next. Whoever finds this recording, I beg you to protect my son." The video ended with James looking directly at the camera, a father's fear and love plainly visible. Noah watched with tears streaming silently down his face, Guardian pressing close in wordless comfort. "We'll make sure people see this," Michael promised. "Your dad did everything he could to protect you and his work." Sarah's phone vibrated with an encrypted message. "Dr. Zhang is ready to meet. Industrial Park near the river. 20 minutes. Michael considered their options. "We stay together. Noah and Guardian come with us. Too dangerous to separate now." They prepared quickly, Michael selecting equipment from the weapons locker with practiced efficiency. Body armor for himself and Sarah, a smaller vest specially sized for Noah, extra ammunition, communications equipment. "Is Dr. Zhang going to help us?" Noah asked as Michael adjusted his protective vest. "We hope so," Michael answered. "Your father trusted her. That counts for a lot." They departed through a different exit than they had entered, taking a third vehicle from the safe house's small garage. Michael drove, Sarah beside him monitoring potential pursuit, Noah and Guardian secured in the back seat. The industrial park was largely deserted on a winter afternoon, most businesses closed for the holiday weekend. They approached cautiously, Sarah scanning for surveillance or ambush points. "Northeast corner," she indicated. "Single vehicle, one occupant." Michael parked at a distance that allowed for quick departure if necessary. "Stay in the car until I signal. Engine running." He approached the waiting vehicle alone, hand near his concealed weapon. A woman emerged, petite with short black hair streaked with gray, her face bearing the focused intensity of a dedicated scientist. "Detective Harrison," she said, her voice steady despite obvious tension. "I'm Melissa Zhang. James was my research partner and friend." "Protocol Canary," Michael stated, testing. "Activation sequence requires dual authentication," she responded correctly. "Neural pathway mapping requires ethical oversight." The phrases matched James's notes exactly. Michael relaxed marginally. "I have Noah Miller with me, and Guardian." Zhang's eyes widened. "You found Guardian, thank God." James was worried they'd harm him after. She stopped, composure momentarily cracking. James loved that boy more than anything, even more than his research, which was his life's work. "We have the research data," Michael confirmed, "and evidence of what they did to James." Nodded grimly. "It's worse than you know. Nexus isn't just planning to patent the formula. They've modified it into a targetable neurological weapon. Memory erasure on command. They're selling it to government black operations." The implications were staggering. Not just murder for profit, but potential mass weaponization. "Eleanor knows you have the evidence," Dr. Zhang continued. "There's a nurse, Linda Hayes. She cared for James in his final days and kept records. Eleanor's men took her this morning. They're trying to eliminate everyone who might corroborate James's claims." Michael processed this new information rapidly. Where would they take her? "Nexus has a research facility outside the city, officially for animal testing. Unofficially, it has containment areas for human subjects." Sarah had joined them, leaving Noah secured in the vehicle with Guardian. "We need to move quickly then. If they're tying up loose ends, Linda Hayes won't last long." Dr. Zhang handed them a security badge. "This will get you access to the external doors. I can't help more directly. They're watching me too closely." "You've risked enough," Michael assured her. "Get somewhere safe. We may need your testimony later. As Dr. Zhang departed, Michael and Sarah returned to their vehicle. Michael explained the situation in simplified terms to Noah, careful not to cause additional trauma while ensuring he understood the seriousness. We need to help someone your dad knew, he concluded, someone who might be in danger. Noah nodded solemnly, like how you helped me. The simple comparison struck Michael powerfully. Yes, exactly like that. They drove toward the Nexus facility, planning their approach. Michael's military experience combined with Sarah's tactical knowledge created a workable strategy, though far from ideal with a child in their protection. We secure Noah first, Michael insisted. Find a safe position, then extract Linda Hayes. The Nexus Biotech Research Facility appeared deceptively ordinary from the exterior. A modern three-story building surrounded by landscape grounds and security fencing. Standard corporate signage. Nothing to suggest its darker purposes. They parked in a wooded area beyond the main lot, using trees for cover. Michael studied the building through binoculars, noting security patrol patterns and camera positions. East entrance has less coverage, he observed. Service access for deliveries. Sarah nodded. Guard rotation every 30 minutes. We have a 12-minute window approaching. They prepared Noah carefully, explaining exactly what would happen and what he needed to do. Stay with Guardian, Michael instructed. He's trained to protect you. If anything happens to us, he'll get you to safety. Guardian seemed to understand, his attention focused entirely on Noah, body language communicating readiness. The boy clutched his teddy bear with one hand, the other buried in Guardian's fur. Will you come back? He asked quietly. Michael met his eyes directly. I promise. Nothing will keep me from coming back for you. They created a secure position in an unused maintenance shed within sight of the building, but hidden from security cameras. Noah and Guardian would wait there while Michael and Sarah infiltrated the facility. We'll be as quick as possible, Sarah assured Noah. 30 minutes maximum. Michael checked his watch, synchronizing with Sarah. Guards change in 3 minutes. We move then. The wait stretched with unbearable tension, seconds ticking by with painful slowness. Noah stood brave and quiet, Guardian alert beside him, both trusting in protection promised by a detective who had already sacrificed his career to keep that promise. Time, Sarah whispered. Michael crouched to Noah's level one last time. Remember what I said. Guardian will protect you. We'll be back soon. Noah nodded, small face solemn. Be careful. It was such an adult thing to say, such a painful reminder of innocence forced to mature too quickly. Michael squeezed the boy's shoulder gently, then rose to follow Sarah toward the facility's east entrance. They moved through the gathering dusk, two shadows flowing across snow-covered ground. Dr. Zhang's security badge worked as promised, granting them access to the service entrance. Inside, industrial corridors stretched in clinical precision, the building's innocent exterior giving way to increasingly secure areas. Using the facility schematic Dr. Zhang had provided, they navigated toward the restricted testing wing. Twice they flattened against walls to avoid security patrols, the stakes of discovery too high to contemplate. Not just their lives or careers, but Noah's safety hung in the balance. The containment area required additional access codes. Sarah bypassed the security system with the technical skill that had once earned her commendations before ethical concerns led her to homicide investigation instead. Inside, the sterile environment took on a more sinister aspect. Rooms with observation windows lined the corridor, most empty, some containing standard laboratory equipment. At the far end, a light burned behind clouded glass. Michael approached cautiously, weapon ready. Through the window, he could make out a woman strapped to a medical chair, monitors attached to her temples and chest. Linda Hayes, presumably. A man in a lab coat adjusted equipment beside her, his back to the door. Sarah positioned herself to cover the corridor while Michael prepared to breach the room. The moment balanced on a knife edge of potential disaster. Then, catastrophically, an alarm began to wail throughout the facility. Emergency lights flashed red against white walls. The man in the lab coat turned, revealing Robert Kane's features beneath the disguise. His eyes met Michael's through the glass, recognition and rage flaring simultaneously. Harrison, he shouted, reaching for something beneath the equipment table. Michael crashed through the door, weapon raised. Police! Don't move! Kane ignored the command, producing a syringe filled with pale blue liquid. He lunged toward Linda Hayes, the needle aimed at her exposed neck. Michael fired once. The bullet struck Kane's shoulder, spinning him away from his victim. The syringe shattered against the floor, its contents spreading in an expanding puddle. Kane recovered with surprising speed, charging Michael with the wounded fury of a cornered predator. They collided violently, Kane's superior size momentarily gaining advantage. Michael felt the impact of a fist against his ribs, the crack of cartilage. His military combat training activated, muscle memory responding to threat with practiced efficiency. Michael twisted, using Kane's momentum against him, driving an elbow into the wounded shoulder. Kane howled, stumbling backward into medical equipment. In the corridor, Sarah engaged with security forces, the sound of gunfire punctuating the alarm's continued wail. Michael had seconds, not minutes, to secure Linda Hayes and extract. "Detective Harrison?" The woman gasped, eyes wide with fear and desperate hope. "Michael," he corrected, working to release her restraints. "James Miller's son sent me." Relief washed over her features. "Noah, is he safe?" "For now," Michael answered grimly, freeing her final restraint. "Can you walk?" Before she could answer, Kane surged upward again, a scalpel gleaming in his hand. Michael pivoted, catching the man's wrist, forcing the blade away. They struggled, locked in deadly proximity, neither gaining clear advantage. "You have no idea what you're interfering with," Kane growled. "This is bigger than one kid or one dead scientist." "Murder is murder," Michael countered, voice steady despite the physical strain. "No matter how you justify it." Kane laughed, a sound devoid of humor. "Says the cop who kidnapped a child and broke every rule in the book. You're finished, Harrison, even if you walk out of here alive." The words carried painful truth, but Michael had accepted those consequences the moment he'd seen Noah trembling on that frozen porch. "Maybe," he acknowledged, "but Noah won't pay for his father's courage, and neither will Linda Hayes." With a sudden shift in strategy, Michael released his grip on Kane's wrist, simultaneously driving his knee upward. The scalpel scored a line of fire across his arm, but Kane doubled over, gasping for breath. Michael brought his elbow down hard against the base of Kane's skull. The man collapsed, unconscious before he hit the floor. Sarah appeared in the doorway, breathing hard, a cut bleeding above her eye. "We need to move. Now. More security incoming." Michael helped Linda to her feet. She swayed momentarily, then steadied, determination overcoming whatever drugs lingered in her system. "They were going to erase my memory," she explained as they moved hurriedly down the corridor. "Make me forget everything about James's final days." The revelation confirmed the weaponization of James's research. Not just theoretical, but operational, already being deployed against inconvenient witnesses. They reached the service entrance as the facility lockdown completed, automated barriers descending to seal exit points. Sarah slid beneath the final door just as it touched the ground, holding it open those crucial extra inches that allowed Michael and Linda to follow. Outside, darkness had fallen completely, snow beginning again in gentle persistence. They ran toward their extraction point, Linda supported between them, her strength returning with each step toward freedom. The maintenance shed appeared undisturbed, exactly as they'd left it. Michael approached cautiously, signaling Sarah to cover their backs. "Noah," he called softly. "It's Michael, we're back." Silence answered him. Cold dread pulled in Michael's stomach as he pushed the door open, revealing the empty interior. No Noah, no guardian, only paw prints and small footsteps in the thin layer of dust, leading toward a rear exit. "They found him," Michael whispered, the words cutting like glass. "They found him." Michael Harrison stood motionless in the empty maintenance shed, the absence of Noah and guardian a physical pain in his chest. The small footprints in the dust led to the rear exit, where they disappeared into the freshly fallen snow. Sarah Chen surveyed the area with her flashlight, her breath forming clouds in the frigid air. "No signs of struggle," she observed, professional calm masking the urgency they both felt. Guardian would have fought if someone tried to take Noah by force. Linda Hayes leaned against the wall, still recovering from her ordeal at Nexus. The dog was trained to evade and protect if threatened. James made sure of it. Michael knelt beside the footprints, reading the story written in dust and snow. Small human tracks alongside paw prints, moving with purpose. not panic. He followed them outside, where the trail continued briefly before vanishing in the fresh snowfall. He ran, Michael realized, both relief and new fear washing through him. Guardian took Noah away from danger. Sarah joined him, her flashlight sweeping the perimeter. Smart dog. But where would they go? The question hung in the dark air as snowflakes continued their silent descent. Michael closed his eyes, forcing his mind past the rising tide of failure that threatened to drown rational thought. He had promised Noah he would return, had promised to keep him safe. Now the boy was alone in the winter night, hunted by people who would not hesitate to silence him permanently. Think, he commanded himself. Where would James program Guardian to go in an emergency? Linda stepped carefully into the snow beside them, her medical training evident in how she assessed her own stability before moving. James had contingencies for everything. He would have created a fallback location. Michael turned to her. The coordinates in his letter to Noah. Did you ever hear James mention a secondary location? A safe place? Linda's brow furrowed in concentration. He spoke once about a cabin, somewhere his grandfather had built, off the grid, said it was the one place not connected to his regular life. Hope flickered like a fragile flame. Michael pulled out his phone, accessing the photos he'd taken of James's documents. The coordinates pointed to a location in the Mount Hood National Forest, approximately 90 minutes from Portland. That has to be it, Sarah agreed, studying the map. Remote enough to be secure, close enough to reach quickly. Michael was already moving toward their vehicle. We need to get there before Eleanor's people figure it out. The drive through darkness became a race against multiple enemies. Eleanor's mercenaries, the gathering snowstorm, and time itself. Each minute that passed was another minute Noah faced the world alone, protected only by a shepherd with extraordinary training but limited capabilities against armed threats. Linda sat in the back seat, filling the tense silence with critical information. Eleanor was fascinated by James's memory research from their first meeting. She positioned herself perfectly, always at the conferences he attended, always asking the right questions. He was brilliant but socially isolated. Easy prey for someone like her. Michael navigated the increasingly treacherous roads, snow accumulating on the windshield shield faster than the wipers could clear it. How did she connect with Nexus? She already worked for them. Industrial espionage disguised as corporate recruitment. When traditional methods failed to access James's research, they sent her to get closer. Marriage provided legal access to his home, his laboratory, his life. Linda's voice hardened with remembered anger. James realized too late what was happening. By then, she had already begun poisoning him. Sarah, monitoring police channels on a secure device, tensed suddenly. Reynolds has expanded the APB. Now we're both wanted for kidnapping, obstruction, and assaulting Nexus security. They're setting up roadblocks on major highways out of Portland. Michael adjusted their route, taking smaller Forest Service roads that would be difficult to monitor. The sedan struggled against deepening snow, its tires not designed for these conditions. James suspected Reynolds was compromised, Linda continued. He tried reporting his suspicions about Eleanor to another precinct, but the case was mysteriously transferred to Reynolds' jurisdiction and buried. The pieces aligned with sickening clarity. Not just Eleanor and Robert, not just Nexus Biotech, but a network of corruption extending into law enforcement itself. A conspiracy willing to murder a brilliant scientist, torture a nurse, and endanger a 5-year-old boy, all to control research worth billions. The forest thickened around them as they climbed into the mountains, massive pines heavy with snow creating a tunnel of white and black. Their headlights illuminated only a few yards ahead, the world beyond swallowed by darkness and swirling snow. We're close, Michael announced, checking the GPS coordinates against landmarks barely visible through the storm. 2 miles to the turnoff. The road narrowed further, becoming little more than a trail through dense woods. Sarah spotted it first, a nearly invisible break in the tree line. There, to the right. Michael turned carefully, the car sliding slightly before finding purchase. The trail meandered another half-mile before opening into a small clearing. There, nestled against the mountainside, stood a cabin of weathered timber and stone. No lights burned in its windows. No smoke rose from its chimney. Nothing suggested occupation except for a single set of tracks leading to the front door, already half filled by fresh snow. Michael parked at a distance, assessing potential threats before approaching. Years of tactical training guided his movements as he advanced toward the cabin, Sarah covering his approach, Linda remaining with the vehicle. The tracks confirmed his hope. Small human footprints alongside paw prints, heading directly to the cabin's entrance. Michael reached the door, listening intently before knocking gently. Noah? It's Michael. I've come back for you, just like I promised. Silence answered him, then faintly a rustling sound inside. A low, questioning whine that could only belong to Guardian. Noah, it's safe now. We rescued Linda. She's with us. More movement inside. A child's voice, thin with cold and fear. How do I know it's really you? Michael's heart constricted at the necessary suspicion from one so young. When we first met, you were holding your teddy bear in the snow. I put my coat around you. Guardian came to protect you first, before I arrived. The sound of a heavy object being dragged away from the door followed. Locks disengaged with metallic clicks. The door opened a few inches, revealing Noah's pale face and Guardian's amber eyes gleaming in the darkness behind him. You came back, Noah whispered. Disbelief and hope warring in his voice. Michael crouched to eye level. I promised I would. I don't break my promises to you. Noah launched himself forward, small arms wrapping around Michael's neck with desperate strength. Guardian followed, Jamal positioning himself protectively beside them, alert even in this moment of reunion. Inside, the cabin was cold but secure. Noah had followed emergency protocols programmed into Guardian, finding the hidden key, securing entrances, staying away from windows. The shepherd had led him unfailingly through darkness and snow to the sanctuary James had prepared for exactly such circumstances. Guardian knew exactly where to go, Noah explained as Michael lit the wood stove. We heard people coming, and he pulled me away. He wouldn't stop until we got here. Sarah secured the perimeter while Linda checked Noah for injuries or exposure. The boy was cold but unharmed, his father's careful planning and Guardian's unwavering protection having saved him once again. The cabin contained emergency supplies, non-perishable food, medical kits, and most importantly, a satellite communication system independent of cellular networks. While Noah ate his first proper meal in hours, Michael established secure contact with FBI Special Agent Marcus Daniels, a former military colleague he trusted implicitly. The evidence is substantial, Marcus confirmed after Michael transmitted James's files. Pharmaceutical espionage, corporate conspiracy, murder, corruption of law enforcement. We've been investigating Nexus for months on separate charges. This connects the dots we were missing. Eleanor and Robert are the immediate threats, Michael stressed. They know Noah witnessed his father's poisoning. They won't stop hunting him. Hold your position. Extraction team can reach you by morning. Weather's making helicopter approach impossible tonight. Morning felt impossibly distant with Eleanor's resources mobilizing against them. Michael signed off and joined Sarah at the window, where she maintained vigilant watch over the snow-covered clearing. Reynolds will have figured out the coordinates by now, she said quietly. They'll be coming. Michael nodded grimly. We defend this position until extraction. No alternatives in this weather anyway. They prepared methodically, using their training and the cabin's design to create a defensible shelter. James had chosen the location wisely. Natural stone at the rear, limited approaches from the front and sides, excellent visibility of the surrounding forest. Noah watched their preparations with solemn understanding, Guardian never leaving his side. The shepherd's training became increasingly apparent as he responded to subtle commands, positioning himself to guard access points, alerting to distant sounds before human ears could detect them. Dad said Guardian was special, Noah explained as they settled in for the long night. He has better memory than normal dogs. Dad changed something in his brain to help with the research. Linda nodded. Your father created an ethical neural enhancement. Guardian can detect chemical compounds other animals can't perceive and remember complex instruction sequences. He's the living prototype for the Alzheimer's treatment. That's why Eleanor wanted him too, Noah concluded with mature understanding. Not just Dad's research, but Guardian himself. Michael marveled at the boy's resilience, his ability to comprehend the dangerous complexities surrounding him without surrendering to fear. A child forced to grow up too quickly, yet somehow retaining the essential innocence that made childhood sacred. As midnight approached, Guardian suddenly stiffened, ears forward, body tense with alertness. A low growl vibrated through his chest. "Someone's coming," Sarah whispered, extinguishing the lamp. The night outside was absolute, snow continuing to fall in heavy silence. Then Guardian's ears pivoted, tracking movement from the forest's edge. Michael positioned himself at the window, using night vision equipment from his tactical gear. The green-tinted view revealed what normal sight could not. Three figures advancing slowly through the trees, their movements betraying professional training. "Three tangos approaching from the northeast," he reported quietly. "Military precision, not local law enforcement." Sarah took up position at the second window. "Two more on the western approach. They're attempting to surround us." Noah remained calm, one hand buried in Guardian's fur, the other clutching his teddy bear. Linda stayed with him in the cabin's most protected corner, a satellite phone ready to signal for emergency extraction if the situation deteriorated. "They'll test our defenses first," Michael predicted, his military experience reading the approaching threat with practiced clarity. "Probe for weaknesses before committing to full engagement." The first shot shattered the pre-dawn silence, a warning round fired well above the cabin. A voice called out, attempting reasonable tones that failed to mask underlying menace. "Detective Harrison, this is Captain Reynolds. You're surrounded by law enforcement. Release the Miller boy and exit with your hands visible." Michael remained silent, knowing engagement would only provide position confirmation. Sarah used the distraction to slip through the rear entrance, circling to establish a secondary defensive position that would catch their attackers in crossfire if they approached. "Final warning, Harrison. We have authorization to use necessary force." Noah pressed closer to Guardian, who remained vigilantly alert but completely silent, trained not to reveal their position through noise. The shepherd's intelligence showed in his calculated stillness, in how his eyes tracked movement outside that human vision missed. The next shots came in rapid succession, bullets splintering wood around windows and doors. Not warning shots, but calculated attempts to disable anyone positioned near entry points. Michael remained in cover, conserving ammunition, waiting for genuine threat before engaging. A sudden crash from the rear of the cabin signaled the beginning of their assault. Two figures in tactical gear breached the back entrance, weapons sweeping the interior. Michael identified them immediately as private contractors, not police, their movements too aggressive for standard law enforcement protocol. Guardian reacted with explosive speed, launching toward the first intruder. The shepherd's training manifested in precision rather than mindless aggression. He targeted the weapon arm, powerful jaws clamping around the wrist, forcing the attacker's gun toward the ceiling before he could fire. Michael engaged the second intruder, his own combat training creating a fluid economy of motion. A disarming strike, a controlled takedown, restraints applied with practiced efficiency. Sarah reappeared through the same entrance the attackers had used, having neutralized threats outside. "Reynolds is holding position in the trees," she reported. "Three more contractors with him. Eleanor and Robert are there too." Michael secured their prisoners, confirming his suspicion. Private military contractors, hired muscle with tactical training but no legal authority. Reynolds had crossed the final line, employing mercenaries rather than police officers who might question illegal orders. "FBI extraction is still 3 hours out," Linda warned, checking the satellite phone. "Storm's delaying them." Michael made his decision. "We can't wait. They'll send more contractors, better prepared now that they know our capabilities." He turned to Noah. "We need to reach the main road. There's an FBI safe house and government camp we can reach if we move now." Noah nodded with complete trust, gathering his teddy bear. Guardian returned to his side, mission-focused, despite the chaos around them. The shepherd showed no aggression now that threats were neutralized, his training apparent in how he transitioned between combat and protective roles without confusion. They prepared to move using the contractor's own cold weather gear to better outfit Noah and Linda. The storm outside had intensified, snow falling in thick curtains that would provide cover for their escape, but make travel treacherous. "Northeast route," Michael decided, studying the terrain maps James had stored in the cabin. "There's a Forest Service road 2 miles that way, less likely to be monitored than our original approach." They moved out in pre-dawn darkness, Sarah leading, Michael guarding their rear, Noah and Linda protected between them, with Guardian constantly surveying for threats. The snow reached mid-calf, each step requiring deliberate effort, their progress slow but steady through the silent forest. Guardian suddenly froze, ears alert, nose testing the air. His posture communicated danger more effectively than words. Michael signaled for immediate cover, the group concealing themselves behind massive pine trunks as headlights swept through the trees ahead. Two SUVs moved slowly along the Forest Service road they had been approaching, high-powered spotlights cutting through falling snow, searching methodically. Eleanor's resources were substantial, her determination to silence witnesses absolute. "They've anticipated our escape route," Sarah whispered. Michael assessed their options, each carrying significant risk. Return to the cabin, now compromised. Attempt to evade through deeper forest, hazardous in worsening weather. Or confront directly, engaging superior numbers, but potentially creating a path to safety. Guardian made a soft sound, almost questioning, drawing Noah's attention. The boy leaned close, listening to something only he could hear. Then he turned to Michael with sudden purpose. "Guardian says there's another way. Dad showed him." Michael and Sarah exchanged glances, weighing the improbability against their limited options. "Your father programmed rotes into Guardian's training?" Linda asked gently. Noah nodded with absolute certainty. "Dad said Guardian would always know the safe path. That's why Eleanor wanted him too." Michael made his decision, placing faith in James Miller's foresight and a shepherd with extraordinary capabilities. "Lead us, Guardian." The dog moved immediately, choosing a path eastward, away from both the cabin and the searched road. He maintained a pace Noah could manage, occasionally looking back to ensure everyone followed. His purpose, unmistakable despite the absence of verbal communication. They traveled nearly an hour through increasingly difficult terrain, the forest growing denser, the slope steepening. Just as exhaustion threatened their progress, Guardian led them to a narrow ravine partially sheltered from the storm. Following the gully downward, they discovered what seemed impossible: a small maintenance shed for Forest Service equipment, concealed by terrain and vegetation. Inside, protected from elements and hidden from pursuers, waited an old but well-maintained snowmobile, large enough to carry two adults and a child. Supplies were stacked neatly beside it, including cold weather gear, emergency rations, and most importantly, a detailed map with routes marked in James Miller's precise handwriting. "Your father thought of everything," Michael said softly to Noah, amazement coloring his voice. "Dad said always have a backup plan," Noah replied simply, Guardian pressing close to his side in silent affirmation. The map revealed their position and marked a route to a secondary road leading directly to government camp, bypassing likely checkpoints. Michael studied it carefully, memorizing key landmarks before preparing the snowmobile. "Sarah, you take Noah and Linda on the snowmobile. I'll follow with Guardian on foot to cover your tracks." Sarah shook her head firmly. "You take Noah. Guardian responds better to you, and Noah trusts you completely. Linda and I will follow the ravine path marked here. It connects to the road 2 miles ahead where we can signal for extraction." The logic was sound, though Michael hated splitting their group. They established rendezvous protocols, communication signals, and contingency plans before separating. "Be careful," Noah told Sarah and Linda with heartbreaking seriousness, a child concerned for adults in his orbit of protection. Michael settled Noah securely on the snowmobile before mounting behind him. Guardian would follow alongside, his endurance and snow adaptation making him capable of maintaining pace. With final nods of determination, they departed in separate directions, each carrying pieces of evidence that could dismantle a conspiracy worth billions. The snowmobile moved swiftly through the forest, Michael navigating by the map's guidance and Guardian's occasional course corrections. The shepherd ran tirelessly beside them, sometimes forging ahead to scout, other times dropping behind to ensure they weren't followed. Dawn was breaking when they reached the secondary road, gray light filtering through clouds heavy with continuing snow. Michael stopped briefly, assessing their position and checking their satellite phone for extraction updates. "FBI team is en route," he told Noah, who sat huddled against the cold despite layers of protective gear. 30 minutes to rendezvous point. They continued along the road, more exposed now, but making better time. Guardian ranged ahead, his senses more reliable than any electronic surveillance. The shepherd's sudden alert posture warned them seconds before the SUV appeared around a bend ahead, its engine noise masked by their own snowmobile. Michael reversed direction immediately, but a second vehicle appeared behind them, cutting off retreat. They were trapped on the narrow road, snowbanks on either side too steep for the snowmobile to navigate. "Hold tight," Michael instructed Noah, accelerating directly toward the ditch beside the road. The snowmobile crashed through the snowbank, momentarily airborne before landing hard on the slope beyond. They slid downward, Michael fighting for control as they descended toward the tree line below. Guardian followed, powerful legs carrying him through deep snow with surprising speed. Behind them, men emerged from both vehicles, shouting commands lost to distance and wind. The snowmobile slowed as they reached thicker forest, eventually stalling against a fallen tree. Michael lifted Noah quickly, setting him on his feet beside Guardian. "We continue on foot. Stay close." They pushed forward through the trees, Michael carrying Noah when the snow proved too deep for his small legs. Guardian led confidently, choosing paths of least resistance with uncanny precision. Behind them, voices called, growing fainter as distance and forest absorbed the pursuit. Hope strengthened as they approached their rendezvous coordinates. The extraction team would have superior numbers, federal authority, and the legal power to end Reynolds' corruption. They needed only to reach that safety. Guardian suddenly stiffened, growling low in his throat. Michael stopped immediately, setting Noah down and drawing his weapon. Ahead, almost invisible against winter camouflage, stood Eleanor Frost, Robert Kane beside her. Both held weapons pointed directly at them. "Detective Harrison," Eleanor greeted, her voice as cold as the surrounding forest. "And Noah, we've been so worried about you." Her beauty remained flawless, even in these conditions. Blonde hair perfectly arranged beneath a white hood, expensive cold weather gear emphasizing her willowy frame. Nothing in her appearance suggested the murderous calculation behind her pale blue eyes. Robert Kane looked worse for their previous encounter. His left arm was immobilized in a sling, his expression tight with pain and rage. The scar above his brow seemed more pronounced against skin paled by cold and exertion. "It's over, Eleanor," Michael stated calmly, positioning himself to shield Noah. "The FBI has James's evidence. They know everything about Nexus, about the weaponized research, about James's murder. Allegations from a disgruntled, mentally unstable researcher," Eleanor dismissed. "His work was deteriorating. Anyone who knew James in his final months saw his paranoia, his confusion." Her smile remained perfect, practiced. "Poor Noah has been traumatized by his father's decline and death. He needs professional care, not kidnapping by a detective with his own psychological issues." Guardian growled louder, muscles tensing beneath his fur. Noah stood silent, one hand buried in the shepherd's coat, the other clutching his teddy bear with white-knuckled intensity. "We found Linda Hayes," Michael countered. "She's already giving her statement about your attempt to erase her memories using James's modified research." Eleanor's perfect composure flickered momentarily. Linda was confused. The trauma of caring for a dying patient affected her judgment. "And Dr. Melissa Zhang? Is she confused too? The FBI has her testimony about how Nexus hired you specifically to target James, just like your previous husbands." That penetrated her armor. Eleanor's eyes hardened, calculation replacing pretense. "You understand nothing about necessity. James's research could help millions, but he was too cautious, too concerned with ethics and protocols. Some advances require sacrifice, like your husband's, like James, like Noah." Michael kept his voice steady despite the rage building inside him. "A 5-year-old boy who witnessed your crimes. Collateral damage," Robert spoke for the first time, his voice rough with pain and hatred. "Sometimes necessary for progress." Guardian's growl deepened, the sound vibrating through the snow-silent forest. Eleanor's grip on her weapon tightened, her attention shifting between Michael and the shepherd with wary assessment. "That animal is worth millions," she said coldly. "The only living subject successfully enhanced with neural pathway modifications, a critical component of the research." "He's not an animal," Noah spoke suddenly, his voice small but steady. "He's Guardian. Dad made him special to protect me from people like you." Eleanor's perfect features twisted with momentary frustration before smoothing again into calculated calm. Noah, sweetie, you're confused. These people have told you lies about me. I've been so worried about you. You hurt my dad, Noah replied simply. You locked me outside to freeze. Guardian knows what you are. He can smell the lies. As if confirming this assessment, Guardian's stance shifted subtly, muscles coiling in preparation. Michael recognized the change, the transition from alert to action imminent. Drop your weapons, he commanded. FBI extraction will be here any minute. They'll find 3 tragic casualties of exposure, Eleanor countered. A disturbed detective who kidnapped a child, leading to both their deaths in this terrible storm. Michael assessed their options with tactical precision. He could protect Noah or engage Eleanor and Robert, not both simultaneously. Guardian could target one threat, but not both. The mathematics of survival calculated against them. Then, impossibly, a third option manifested. Sarah Chen emerged from the trees behind Eleanor and Robert, her weapon steady, her voice carrying absolute authority. Federal agents, drop your weapons. Behind her came not just Linda Hayes, but a full FBI tactical team, weapons trained, positions secured. Eleanor and Robert found themselves suddenly outmanned and outgunned, their perfect ambush transformed into certain defeat. Eleanor's composure finally shattered. She swung her weapon toward Noah in desperate fury, recognizing the primary witness who could destroy everything. If I lose everything, so do you. Guardian launched before she could fire, his training and protective instinct culminating in one perfect moment of intervention. He struck with controlled precision, targeting her weapon arm rather than her throat, disarming rather than killing. The gun discharged harmlessly into snow as Eleanor fell beneath 80 pounds of focused canine purpose. Robert attempted to compensate, shifting his aim toward Michael, but federal agents neutralized the threat with professional efficiency. Within seconds, both conspirators were disarmed and restrained, their expressions transitioning from confidence to shock to the hollow realization of complete failure. Special Agent Marcus Daniels approached, nodding to Michael with professional respect. Detective Harrison, quite the situation you have uncovered. Michael holstered his weapon, turning immediately to check Noah. The boy stood trembling but unharmed, Guardian already returned to his side. Mission completed, protection maintained. Noah Miller, Michael said formally, crouching to eye level. May I introduce Special Agent Daniels? He's going to help make sure Eleanor and Robert face justice for what they did to your father. Noah regarded the FBI agent solemnly before asking the question that mattered most to his 5-year-old heart. Will I have to go back with her? Marcus shook his head firmly. No, son, that's not happening, ever. Only then did Noah allow himself to cry, the tears coming not from fear, but from relief, from the release of tension maintained too long by one too young. Michael gathered him close, offering the simple comfort of safety, finally assured. Guardian pressed against them both, amber eyes watchful even in this moment of victory. His vigilance would not cease until his charge was truly secure, his oath of protection extending beyond immediate threat to encompass Noah's entire future. The federal courthouse in Portland stood solemn against a clear winter sky, its architecture speaking of permanence and authority. 6 weeks had passed since the confrontation in the forest. 6 weeks of evidence gathering, testimony preparation, and justice slowly advancing toward conclusion. Michael Harrison adjusted his tie, uncomfortable in the formal suit required for court appearances. Beside him sat Noah Miller, similarly dressed in miniature, Guardian at his feet beneath the witness stand. The shepherd had been granted special permission to accompany Noah during testimony, his presence deemed essential for the child's emotional well-being. The courtroom filled with serious faces, FBI agents, prosecutors, journalists permitted for this phase of proceedings. Eleanor Frost and Robert Kane sat at the defense table, their expensive legal team unable to overcome the mountain of evidence against them. Captain Reynolds had already pleaded guilty to lesser charges in exchange for testimony against Nexus Biotech. The corporation itself faced separate federal prosecution for illegal weapons development, pharmaceutical fraud, and conspiracy charges that would dismantle its entire structure. Noah had told his story 3 times already to investigators, each telling strengthening his confidence. Michael had remained constantly present, a steady anchor in the storm of legal proceedings. Their bond, forged in crisis, had deepened through shared recovery. When Noah finished his testimony, his voice cleared despite the intimidating surroundings. The lead prosecutor approached with final questions. Noah, you've been very brave today. Just one more question. How do you feel now? The boy considered this seriously, one hand resting on Guardian's head. Safe, he answered simply. Michael and Guardian keep me safe. The prosecutor nodded, satisfied, and returned to her table. As Noah stepped down from the witness stand, Eleanor's cold voice carried across the courtroom. You'll always be alone, Noah. Always the boy nobody wanted. Bad luck follows you. The judge immediately called for order, but Noah paused, his small shoulders straightening as he looked directly at the woman who had caused so much suffering. I'm not alone, he replied, his voice steady despite its softness. Dad made sure of it. He walked to where Michael waited, Guardian following with vigilant attention. Together they exited the courtroom, leaving Eleanor to face the justice James Miller had planned so carefully to deliver even beyond death. Outside, spring sunshine had begun to melt winter's remnants. Sarah Chen waited on the courthouse steps, her testimony completed days earlier. Beside her stood Dr. Out. Melissa Zhang and Linda Hayes, each having contributed crucial elements to the case against Nexus. The jury won't deliberate long, Sarah predicted, too much evidence for any other outcome. Michael nodded, his attention focused on Noah, who had wandered a few steps away with Guardian. The boy and shepherd stood gazing across the courthouse lawn, a tableau of innocence preserved against overwhelming odds. The adoption hearing is next week, Michael said quietly, if everything goes as expected. It will, Sarah assured him. Your record is exemplary except for the minor issue of technically kidnapping him to save his life. Judge Williams understands the extenuating circumstances. Michael watched Noah kneel to explain something to Guardian, the shepherd listening with the focused attention that had first marked him as extraordinary. The sight created an ache of possibility in Michael's chest, a future he had never imagined for himself after losing his family years before. He'll always miss James, Michael acknowledged. I won't try to replace his father. No, Sarah agreed, but you can give him what James wanted most for him. Safety, home, family. 1 week later, they stood in a smaller courtroom, this one designed for family proceedings rather than criminal trials. Judge Williams, a grandmotherly woman with keen eyes and decades of experience, reviewed the final documents before her. Detective Harrison, she addressed Michael formally, you understand the responsibilities you're undertaking? A child is not a temporary commitment. I understand completely, Your Honor, Michael replied. Noah needs permanence, security, and love. I am prepared to provide all three for as long as he needs them. The judge turned her attention to Noah. And you, young man, how do you feel about this arrangement? Noah stood beside Michael, Guardian at his feet as always. His answer came without hesitation. Michael found me when I was cold. He kept his promise to protect me. He's family now. Judge Williams smiled, the expression warming her judicial demeanor. And what about your companion there? Does he approve? Noah glanced down at Guardian, who looked up with unwavering attention. Guardian says yes, he stays with family too. The simple certainty in his voice brought unexpected emotion to Michael's throat. Family, a word he had ceased to associate with his own life, a concept belonging to his past rather than his future. Until now. Well, Guardian's opinion carries significant weight in this courtroom, Judge Williams declared with gentle humor. Having reviewed all documentation and recommendations, I hereby approve this adoption. Noah Miller shall henceforth be legally recognized as Noah Miller Harrison, with Michael Harrison granted full parental rights and responsibilities. She signed the final document with flourish before addressing Noah directly. Young man, you may now officially hug your father. Noah turned to Michael, his serious eyes suddenly bright with restrained tears. Dad said find someone good. I did. Michael knelt, gathering the boy into an embrace that promised protection, commitment, and the love of a father who had been given a second chance to be worthy of the title. Guardian pressed against them both, his mission transformed from temporary protection to permanent family membership. 6 months later, summer sunshine warmed the backyard of a modest Portland home. Michael tended a grill while Sarah arranged a picnic table nearby. In the grass, Noah threw a ball for Guardian, the shepherd returning it with the focused enthusiasm of a dog who understood his dual purpose: protector and companion. Dr. Zhang joined them carrying research notes to review with Michael. The court had awarded James Miller's patents to Noah, with Michael as trustee. Together with Dr. Zhang, they were ensuring the research would fulfill its original purpose, helping Alzheimer's patients recover memories rather than weaponizing the technology to erase them. Linda Hayes arrived with flowers for the garden Noah had started, teaching the boy about plants that thrived in Pacific Northwest conditions. The small family had expanded to include these allies, each contributing to Noah's recovery and growth. As evening approached, Michael called Noah for dinner. The boy ran to the table, Guardian trotting beside him with the relaxed alertness that had become his normal state. Safety established, protection maintained, but vigilance never completely abandoned. Guardian needs dinner too, Noah reminded, setting out the special food Dr. Zhang had formulated for the shepherd's unique neurological needs. Michael watched his son, the words still new enough to create wonder each time he thought it. The shadows remained in Noah's eyes sometimes, moments when memories of his father and all that had happened would temporarily overwhelm him. But those moments grew less frequent, healing progressing with each passing day. After dinner, as twilight painted the sky in purple and gold, they visited the small memorial garden Noah had created in a quiet corner of the yard. A simple stone marker bore James Miller's name and the words, Father, Protector, Scientist. Noah placed fresh flowers beside it, Guardian sitting respectfully at his side. Dad would like our new family, Noah said with the quiet certainty of a child who had known both profound loss and unexpected restoration. Michael rested his hand on Noah's shoulder, feeling the boy lean trustingly against him. Your father created this family, Noah. He made sure you would never be alone. Guardian looked up at them both, amber eyes reflecting the last golden light of day. His oath of protection, programmed by James Miller's brilliant foresight and deepened by his own extraordinary capacity, remained unbroken. The shepherd had fulfilled his purpose, delivering Noah to safety, to justice, to family. As darkness settled gently around them, stars appearing in the summer sky, Michael Harrison realized he too had been delivered. From isolation to connection, from grief to purpose, from a past defined by failure to a future shaped by the second chance embodied in the small boy beside him. Noah reached for Michael's hand, Guardian pressed against his leg, the three of them connected by promises kept and bonds formed in the crucible of winter's darkest days. Together they walked back toward the house, warm lights beckoning them home, Guardian and guarded alike.